Hi and welcome. My name is Hans Erickson, and today I'd like to introduce you to the wonderful world of photo scanning, or as it is also called, photogrammetry. Let's talk a little bit about what exactly is photogrammetry. Basically, when you're taking a photo of a scene or an object, you are projecting a three-dimensional objects onto a two-dimensional plane, which we'll commonly refer to as a photograph. Photogrammetry is exactly the reverse of that process. Through a series of photographs showing an object in two-dimensional space, or photographs, the object is then projected into three-dimensional space as a 3D model. Let's look at an example of this. This figure is from a private collection. It is from the Nazca culture in Peru and dates between the 10th and 13th century. Uh, the Nazcas are probably most famous for producing the Nazca lines that are etched into Peruvian landscape. This is a result of a 3D model after I have converted it with photogrammetry and then processed it uh, as a 3D model in a 3D modeling software. Looking at the two side by side, the one on the left is the actual object, and the one on the right is what was produced with photogrammetry. You can barely tell the difference. And the beauty of this can be shared in any number of ways, such as in a game engine or even virtual reality. So I think just saying that will give you a lot of the value of photogrammetry. The example I showed you was from a private collection which can be enjoyed by the owner, his family, and friends, a rather limited amount of viewers that can enjoy the history of that culture. Museums offer a wider audience, but quite frankly, they can only be enjoyed by those that are actually able to visit the museum and only at times when those exhibits are showed. Quite frankly, a lot of people, let's say from the Nazcan culture, which is Peruvian, there's a lot of Peruvians that would never be able to go to a museum to, enjoy their past culture. But when these objects are scanned and converted into 3D objects, they can be shared with anyone who has access to a computer and the application the object is ported to. The objects can be ported to a game engine or even virtual reality where they can be enjoyed by students or even casual visitors anywhere in the world. The requirements for photogrammetry is actually pretty basic. You need the object, of course, that's going to be converted, a camera. Uh, you need some sort of studio setup, which would be a backdrop and a platform, such as a table to, hold the object. Uh, I recommend using gloves. It's optional if you're handling historic artifacts. And of course, the software that is used for the process. The objects that are going to be converted, size isn't really an issue, but it can be problematic depending on the ability to photograph and the power of the computer doing the work. Quite frankly, I have heard of people actually taking a series of photographs of a building using a GoPro and on a what do you call it, a drone, and taking those objects and then actually converting that entire 3D model of the building into 3D applications. Objects that has an ultrafine structures like hair or feathers are not good candidates. Solid objects really work the best. And the reason for that is things like grass, hair, feathers, and things that have those really fine structures. Uh, the Photogrammetry software tends to get a little confused with it and will produce a lot of artifacts. So if you're doing something with hair and feathers and grass and maybe trees with leaves, those aren't really going to be good candidates. Objects should also have sufficient detail. Things like vases with a single color are not good candidates. It's very hard for the photogrammetry software to pick up the differences as the model rotates. The camera needs to pick up points of detail to differentiate between the object and the background. The camera. Any camera that will take digital shots of a decent resolution will work. In this case, I'm using my Canon Rebel T3 for this demonstration. However, I've also done it with cell phones and it works equally as well. A tripod to mount the camera or cell phone is nice, but also it is not a requirement. Hand holding the camera will work equally as well. This is a picture of the studio setup that I used for this demonstration, and it's more elaborate than absolutely necessary. A simple table is good enough. I've actually used either a coffee table or even a TV tray. A white bed sheet works just great. Drape the bed sheet over the table and then maybe up the back of a couple chairs behind the table, and that serves quite well. In this case, I also added a piece of white poster board, which was able to give me a smoother substrate to go ahead and rotate my model on. As far as lighting goes, overhead, table, and floor lamps works fine. In this case, I'm using diffuse lamps. They're LED lamps, and they have a covering over it which produces very soft lighting. But quite frankly, you can use just about any set of lights that you want, as long as you can try to keep the shadowing down to where you don't get harsh shadows. That's the key. Try to minimize harsh shadows. The Photogrammetry software, there's actually quite a few of them out there. In this case, I'm using Mushroom. It's a free application that can be downloaded for absolutely free. You can use it commercially or non-commercially, and runs on either Windows or Linux platforms. If you have a Mac OS, Agisoft Metashape is another platform that works quite well. It has both a commercial and free application that can be used with Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. There's tons of other software choices out there for photogrammetry, and that some of them are free and some of them are commercial. You can find those through a simple web search for photogrammetry software. Between all the applications, the process is basically the same between applications. You take 360-degree photos of the object at various angles, and then you import them into the software of choice. After that, you're going to need some 3D software that you can then take the object and put it into the 3D software to convert it into something that you can, there's a refining process that you have to go through afterwards, and you kind of need this software to simplify the mesh to make it usable in other applications. In this demonstration, I'm using Blender. This is a free 3D modeling and rendering software that can be downloaded from www.blender.org. This software can be used for commercial or non-commercial projects and has an open GLP or GPL license. If you happen to have a student ID from a university or something like that, you can generally get a free 3-year student non-commercial version of Maya. And the beauty of that, there is also a plugin from Meshroom that you'll be able to port directly between the two applications. The photographing process is actually quite simple. Once I set up my studio, I took a series of 4 views where I physically rotated the object a few degrees between shots until I got a full 360-degree photographs of the object. I did one which is a level shot with the object standing upright, turning it slightly ever so much between shots. Then I raised my camera so that I was looking down on the object at about 45 degrees, with the object again standing upright and again turning it slightly until I completed a 360-degree rotation. I did 2 more, one with the object laying on its back, again the same process, turning it slightly between shots till I hit 360 degrees, and then also with it lying on its back, turning it again slightly at a 45-degree angle until I got that 360-degree rotation. Here's some examples of the shots that I took. This is where I shot dead on level, and you can see as I turned it around. This is my 45-degree angle shots. This is my 45-degree shot examples with it lying on its back. And again, the same process again with it lying on its front side. The next steps, well, I should mention that all of those photos combined amounted to about, somewhere between 60 and 70 photos. The next steps will be to load all those photos into a single folder on your PC. They can be in any order, and as long as they're in one single folder. After this, we'll discuss how to import these photos into Photogrammetry software, which in this case will be Meshroom. Then starting Meshroom to calculate the 3D object. After that, we'll talk about porting the object into 3D software for its final conversion. Incidentally, so that you can follow along with this entire tutorial without having to go out and do all of this yourself, I'm going to make all of my photos of this model available for download so that you can practice the process with me. So please stay tuned for the next 2 parts of this exciting process.